Hello YouTube, welcome back to my channel. Today we're going to be going over the new hunter that arrived to the game, the new Cha Hae-In. It's the first year anniversary, so happy anniversary to Soul Leveling Arise, and for all of you who have stayed playing the game since its launch, or new players that started now or recently, this is a great time to start actually, because of the new hunter and the rewards that they're giving you. So how about we go see what the new hunter does and if it's worth it to summon for her? I think it is, but what does she do and how do you build her? So the new hunter, Cha Hae-In, the Pure Sword Princess, is a water fighter hunter that scales off defense. As you can see, she's going to be a new main DPS and scaling off defense. We already had a scaling main DPS for scaling on defense, which was Thomas Andre for light, and now we have one for water. If you saw the buffs that Cha-Hae-In gave, you would see that it was most likely that Cha Hae-In would be scaling either off HP or defense, since it's the only stats that Cha-Hae-In buffs for your team, and it wouldn't make sense for them to release a breaker that wouldn't help the next water hunter. And so, as we can see, Cha Hae-In, the Pure Sword Princess, scales off defense, and as a team designated for her, I guess you can say that she was built according to the other units were built according to Cha Hae-In, at least the unit previous to Cha Hae-In, the first unit that was launched, one of the first units that came to the game, which is based on water. Melin Fisher is actually not scaling off HP, so scaling off HP, she wasn't made in accordance to Cha Hae-In, but she still works really well with the Cha Hae-In, since she buffs with her ultimate. She increases your defense by 8%, critical hit rate by 8%, and core attack damage by 8%. All of these stats are really good for Cha Hae-In, the water Cha Hae-In. And why is that? Well, for starters, she will be using her skills a lot, and once she uses her skills, she's going to be using her core attack constantly for a short period of time, at least if you have her first advancement. So I would say that you really want at least the first advancement. If you can get more than one, it's obviously good. This is the first unit I got advancement 5 on the release. I usually get 1 or 2 advancements and wait for the tickets, wait for the hunter to be added to the tickets before I get extra copies, so I can get all the new units whenever they drop to make a video for you guys. But this time I wanted to have Cha Hae-In is one of my favorite hunters in the whole series. Of course, she's one of the most developed one in terms of story, since she's closely related to the main character, but she's one of the ones I like most. And as you can see, the ones I like the most, I have 5 stars or close to 5 stars, and she's definitely one. And I really love her playstyle. I wish the base Cha Hae-In had this playstyle, or at least these mechanics in the story. It makes more sense with her title of the sword dance, or something like that. This is more of a sword dance than the original Cha, but I really like the original Cha as well, but the animations and the playstyle of the Princess Sword are way better and way more of what I had in mind Cha Hae-In to do. So let's get to the abilities. Her first basic skill deals a decent amount of damage, and you're basically going to use this skill whenever you have up. Your second basic skill, Sword Storm, deals a decent amount of damage and applies unrecoverable to the opponent. When you're playing as Sang Jin-woo, she deals a huge amount of damage and also applies Unrecoverable and Sword Princess Oath. The target can't recover, and they take 5% additional damage and 15% increased damage if you're dealing water damage, since it's 10% increased water damage and an additional 5% increased damage for overall for 15 seconds. So if you're using water weapons and water abilities as Sang Jinwoo, you'll have a 15% increased damage on your abilities and the damage overall. If you're using other types of skills or other types of weapons, you'll deal an additional 5% damage, which is a really good support skill, considering that she also deals a massive amount of damage alongside the alongside the buff. Her intro deals a good damage, and when you enter, you also get the same buff, the Sword Princess Oath, which increases your damage by 15%. Since you're water damage, you'll always have the 15%. If you have a teammate that isn't water type, they only have 5% increased damage. But I believe it will be only for her, so you will have a 15% increased damage. Her ultimate, just like Kane, is one of the most highest scaling ultimates in the game, I believe, and it packs a punch, that's for sure. It's a really strong ultimate. You deal a massive amount of damage, so it's going to be one of the highest damaging abilities, and she's going to really hurt when you're using her. And for passive, you choose one you prefer. When Sword Princess Dance or Heavenly Strike hit, they activate Heavenly Swords. Sword Princess Dance is her core attack, Heavenly Strike is her first basic skill. When the user uses Sword Princess Dance or Heavenly Strike, it recharges the Wheel of the Sword Gauge. What's the Wheel of the Sword Gauge? When you're playing as Cha Hae-In, you'll see the Sword Gauge above the HP, and whenever you feel it, you'll get bonus damage and swords. Heavenly Swords. The number of blades that can be summoned by the Heavenly Swords will skill increases based on the Wheel of the Sword's Gauge recharge level. So the more swords you have, the more hits you do, the more damage she deals. She deals 1700% of her skill damage. Her defense has damage, and the more swords you have, the more damage you'll deal. And you deal water damage equal to 170% of the defense for every blade summoned as a part of the Heavenly Sword skill. So whenever you summon a new sword, you deal 170% of your defense as water damage, which is really good, and an additional damage as well. And they count as basic skill. This is important because if this counts as basic skill, you can increase this damage with artifacts that increase your basic skill damage. So Wheel of the Sword applies the effects below for every Wheel of the Sword Gauge recharge level. So the bigger the gauge, the more effects you have. Increases your defense by 5%, crit rate by 2, and crit damage by 2, stacking up to 6 times. So you can increase your defense by 30%, which is a huge amount of defense increase. 12% crit rate and 12% crit damage. So if you get 50% from your artifacts, you have essentially 62% crit rate just by for abilities alone. And that's pretty much how her skill works. You do your second basic skill right into your first basic skill, and then you do your core attack into your ultimate if you have ultimate charged. And now the first advancement. The first advancement is really good, and that's because of the Blade Master skill effect. I mean, your second basic skill changes to Quick Attack Sword Storm, increasing damage by 60%. So just for having the first advancement, you have 60% damage increase on your second basic skill. Blade Master. When you use Heavenly Strike, the first basic skill, you get the Blade Master effect. He enhances the Wheel of Sword effect. Blade Master. Your core attack changes to Dance of Scattered Blades. While using Dance of Scattered Blades, the user gains super armor, and the user's core attack activates, and they don't consume core gauge for 5 seconds, which means what that means that for 5 seconds you're spamming the core attack. You don't lose core attack, you're always doing the enhanced core attack, which will make it so you deal massive amount of damage for 5 seconds, and the reason why Maylin Fisher is really good, because she increases your core attack damage, and for 5 seconds you're spamming core attacks. And Wheel of Sword, now instead of 5% defense, it's 10%, stacking up to 6 times. So you basically have 60% increased defense, which is a huge buff. The first advancement is really good, so at least one advancement will make her damage skyrocket. Second advancement. Second advancement is a bit less amazing, but it's still good. Now your first basic skill also applies unrecoverable, and your ultimate will paralyze the opponent. Now you have a stun for 3 seconds, which can help you deal massive amount of damage without them running away. The third advancement. When you get the Gouge to 100%, you get Swords Resolve. Your first basic skill changes to Heavy Attack Heavenly Strike, increasing its damage by 60%. Now you have a 60% bonus damage on your first basic skill, and it consumes all of your Will of the Sword Gouge when duration ends. What this means is that when you use your basic skills, you will start filling your Gouge, and the moment it reaches max, you can use your first basic skill again to deal another huge amount of damage and lose your Gouge, so you have to recharge again. But that makes it so you can use second basic skill, first basic skill, core attacks until you finish the timing. Ultimate, if your Gouge is at 100%, use your first basic skill again, and then you can switch, either killing your opponent or at least dealing a huge amount of damage. Our fourth advancement will increase her crit rate for each water member on our team, and crit damage as well, so 7% going up to 21% if you only have water element teammates. So at least if you only use Cha Hae-In, it's 7% increased crit rate and 7% increased crit damage. So if you have fourth advancement alone, she already has 69% crit rate, but if you have another 2 water units on your team, you have 83% crit rate alone. So if you get all of her advancements, she will be going insane on the crit rate. We don't need the crit rate buffs from anywhere else. And the last advancement, and the one that will make her deal the most amount of damage, usually it's the Will of the... it activates it enhances Will of the Sword, so instead of being 10-2-2, it's 10-4-4, which makes it so instead of 12% crit rate and crit damage, it's 24%. And again, if you add up, instead of 83, you go to 95% crit rate. With just Maelyn Fisher's buff, you have 100% crit rate if you manage to get 50% from artifacts alone, or the core buff. So it's really good. So it's really good for her. And last but not least, the Pure Sword Princess increases the damage of Sword of Destiny by 60%. So her ultimate also gets a 60% bonus damage. As you know, the ultimate deals an absurd amount of damage. And it also increases the damage of Heavenly Strike and Heavy Attack Heavenly Strike by 60%. So your first basic skill also gets an additional 60% bonus damage, alongside the Swords Resolve 60% bonus damage. So our first basic skill will obliterate your opponent, basically. And that's pretty much it for our kit. How do you build her? Well, I believe there will be 2 ways to build her. At least the best ways to build her will probably be 4-piece Iron Wheel with 4-piece Obsidian. Iron Wheel will increase your defense by 8%, and if you have the Force side effect, 33%. When you use your ultimate, it increases your ultimate skill damage by 50% one time every 20 seconds. As you saw, she deals a huge amount of damage with her ultimate, and the fact that you can get a 50% increased damage from the artifact set makes it so you're going to nuke your opponents. And the Obsidian, it's nothing new. The outstanding ability, it's nothing new. It increases your damage by 60% and only requires you to be above 40% of your MP, which you're basically always up the 40%. The other sets you could use would be Infamy. Infamy's 8 set effect increases your damage in teamfight mode by 40%, so if you're going against Power of Destruction, Guild Boss and whatnot, you'll deal 40% increased damage. And you get Gothic Infamy, which increases your basic skill and ultimate skill damage by 100%, which is really good on her, and could be the best artifact slot, but since you have Iron Wheel and Obsidian, it's It will be, I will need to test the difference between both of them before I tell which one is the best one, but at least for now you can go either 8-piece Gothic Infamy or 4-piece Iron Will with 4-piece Obsidian, and you'll deal really good damage, and you won't be missing much. For stats, obviously she scales off defense, so you want to have as much defense as you can in your main stats and substats. Apart from that, crit rate on the left side and crit damage on the right, with damage increase and defense penetration on the last 3 remaining slots. That's how you build pretty much all of your main DPSs. Max out on the scale, on what they scale, attack, HP or defense, in this case defense, and then try to get as much of the other good stats as you can without sacrificing your scaling. For the cores, I'm going to use for now Nameless Demon for the top core, which gives 20% critical hit damage when you use your ultimate for 8 seconds, really good. You want to use your ultimate to deal a massive amount of damage, and this increases your crit damage by 20%, giving you an extra damage on your ult. For the middle core, I'm going to use the Desires of Crimson Apex. It gives me 6% defense when MP is 15% or below, which doesn't mean a lot, but since she scales off defense, it's basically free damage for Cha Hae-In when you have 50% or less MP. Since she likes to be on the field, you might go below the 50% mark on your MP, and once you go below, you have 6% defense added on top. And last one, Nameless Demon's Magic Sphere. It will give, whenever I use my ultimate, I recover 5% of MP. Every 20 seconds I will have this up. It's good for units that stay on the board a lot, since you're going to use quite a lot of mana using them, and this is really good for recovering that MP whenever you're getting low. You could use another one if you have better options, but this is the best one I have right now, so I'm going to stick to the Nameless Demon's Magic Sphere. And yeah, that's pretty much Cha Hae-In. I'm still farming for artifacts, since they're all new. I'm still trying to find better ones. As you can see, I don't have any defense percent on substats. At least I got a decent roll, so it's not that bad. This one is really good if I could get at least 1 or 2 rolls on defense percent, but I have a ton of defense penetration. This one is really good, all in on defense and defense penetration, and I need a better crit damage boot, since I only have defense percent +1 and I'm already missed 2 times. And it's pretty much it for today's video. If you enjoyed the video, please leave a like, comment, subscribe, and I hope to see you in the next one. Goodbye.